Hello, everyone. My name is Ruchi Soni, and I'm the Manager of Energy Access at the UN Foundation. This is another in the series of conversations that the Practitioner Network is having with practitioners and ecosystem enablers in the off-grid energy space. Today, we are pleased to have Jeffrey Prins join us, who is the Head of Portfolio at IKEA Foundation. IKEA Foundation's mission is to create lasting change by funding holistic, long-term programs in some of the world's poorest and marginalized communities that address fundamental needs. Jeffrey's focus at the IKEA Foundation is on renewable energy as a means to alleviate poverty and to fight climate change. He's previously worked at UN Foundation for over 11 years, funding, amongst very many other things, various energy startups in India and East Africa. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So today we're going to talk about IKEA Foundation's involvement in the energy access space and the impact of your work on people's lives.
Okay.
Jeffrey, IKEA Foundation is one of the strongest voices and players urging greater involvement of the private sector in humanitarian response and has donated over several million euros on energy and education in humanitarian settings. Let's start with a very basic question. What sparked IKEA Foundation's interest in this space?
So we're a pretty new foundation. We started in 2009, and we have a very clear mission, which is to focus on the humanitarian space or the refugee space. So it's part of our mission. And our founder, Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, the Swedish retailer, when he set us up as a foundation, he secured this mission in our foundation, but also to look at poverty alleviation, position of children, amongst other things. If you're serious about poverty alleviation, you automatically look at things like energy access to water, or a place to live. It's been a journey for us. It made sense to start in the humanitarian setting, specifically just because of our mission that we were given by the founder, and it's where the needs are the biggest. And energy fits in quite well because it's such an enabler for any kind of benefits that you want to catalyze. You need energy to read, to cook, to be safe. You need it for livelihoods, for having a job, or if you're in agriculture, if you're a smallholder farmer, you need it to process your harvest, etc.
Right, absolutely. But I also understand this is a very difficult journey that you've embarked upon. And we'd love to hear from you on some of the biggest challenges you've faced in this journey of providing energy services and some of the solutions you may have employed to deal with these.
Yeah, so like any new foundation, again, we started in 2009, so we're very new. But like any foundation, we have our own learning curve, so to speak. So if you look at the humanitarian setting, we took it as a way to provide energy in the simplest way possible by giving solar products. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's not the best way to learn, but that's not the best way forward, just because a lot of different issues. A lot of times the refugees don't want these pico-solar products. They might sell them for food or other basic needs. Products might break down, but that's where we started. And if people don't have light, what's the best way to give them light in a way that makes sense? We try to learn as we go, making mistakes along the way, and hopefully learning from other organizations or other foundations that have done the work in a better way.
Right. And Jeffrey, I think that's a very good segue from what you mentioned around learning from other organizations, because I understand that IKEA Foundation has partnered with several other organizations such as UNHCR, Save the Children, and more recently with CELCO. How do you go about identifying such partners? And do you see the value of such partnerships encourage other donors in the space to sort of move into this area and build on the work on providing energy access services?
Again, when you're very new in the field and you have quite a substantial budget and very little capacity, you often choose for organizations that are well known in their field. So if you think of the refugee sector, you automatically think of a UNHCR because they have this international mandate to provide emergency relief. They're one of the only, few, if not only, organizations that have the mandate to go to a country to provide emergency relief for refugees. we've gone along on this journey. The same is true for if you look at children and serving children's needs. There are organizations you automatically end up with just because they have this track record, they have the history, they have been a credible partner. So it's organizations like UNICEF or Save the Children. But as we've gone along, we also realized that supporting these organizations is very good, and we need to step up our efforts to make the most of our funding. It's made us think as well about what can we do additionally on top of funding of these types of organizations that will clearly need funding over the years and will need support from members, from public sources of funding, also from private charities like us. But how can we step things up and take the learnings and try to continue along that journey? So for example, UNHCR, well known for having the mandate to deal with emergency relief situations and taking on how to deal with people that are displaced. How can you work with these big organizations but also bring innovation in? So one of the things that we did is we worked with this social enterprise called Better Shelter to offer a new kind of shelter product, which was inspired by the flat pack design from IKEA, but to go that extra step and say, well, our funding is there to absorb risks. Besides UNHCR, can we fund innovations that no one's willing to fund? And can we go that extra mile to make sure that these types of innovations are included in the regular day-to-day work, which is, of course, doesn't always have the luxury to look beyond the emergency relief, for example, and look more into innovation and more longer-term solutions, which we're able to look at with the innovation push of a social entrepreneur like Better Shelter. So that's been our journey. We've identified partners, initially quite simple. We have a mission to work on refugees. Well, what is the best known and most credible organization? That's UNHCR or Poverty Alleviation and Position of Children. UNICEF is a clear choice, or Save the Children. Not a really heavily researched, mapped out way of working initially, just because our capacity has been limited, but trying to build long-term relationships with trusted organizations and trying to learn from these relationships and what they do, and also push things a little bit farther and look at smaller organizations now that are really pushing the needle, that are much more innovative or have the luxury to be much more innovative than these larger organizations.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeffrey. And I think, you've said it right. Long-term relationships and strategic alliances in this particular sector are very crucial. And it's actually great to see how you've partnered with several like-minded partners and making a difference. Really, my sort of next question, Jeff, would be around we understand that IKEA Foundation is expanding its focus from household energy and humanitarian settings to work on bigger issues around nexus. So energy and nexus issues such as healthcare, education. We would love to hear more on that and building on your previous work, how you see this moving forward.
Recently, we partnered with Selco Foundation, which looks exactly at this nexus. For those of us who've gone to the Sustainable Energy for All Forum in Lisbon, it was quite striking that there was a bit of an absence of other types of players. So there are a lot of sort of the usual energy players, but what we would like to see, and that's what we're trying to push with our relationship with Selco Foundation, is to not necessarily talk so explicitly about energy and solar and energy efficiency, but just have it as the normal default option for all these other issue areas like health, education, well-being, built environment, livelihoods. So energy is the default enabler that makes all these things easier, cheaper, cleaner, inclusive. So for example, if you look at health clinics, and this is some of the work that we've done with Selco Foundation, and all the credit goes to them for all the hard work that they've done in the Northeast, in the state of Assam. They've looked at health clinics and they realized that the rural poor have to travel sometimes 2 days before they get to a health clinic. So Selco Foundation looked at how might we bring solar into the equation as the default option to bring health services to the doorstep of the poor. So they've worked in health boat clinics. They've supplied these boat clinics with solar panels, which allows the boats to be in the area longer. It allows solar to be the driver of efficiency. So all the appliances run on solar. You have a dentist chair that's completely efficient and can run on solar, or vaccines that can keep chilling longer because of solar, or any kind of testing equipment. Solar makes it all easier, more accessible, cheaper, more inclusive. So this is what we're very keen to do as we get into this steeper learning journey.
Great to hear that, Jeffrey. It'd be very nice to understand if you'll have a regional focus going forward, working around these nexus issues. I understand your partnership with Celco is focused on India, but trying to understand better on, do you think you'll have focus countries around this, or would this be an approach that be led by partners here?
As a young foundation with relatively a lot of money, so we have a mandate from our board. It's a mandate that we haven't reached yet, to spend $100 million on poverty alleviation and $100 million on climate change. We have very little staff, so we have to rely on good organizations like Celco Foundation to point the way of where can we make the most of our money. Navigated toward the big, well-known organizations, just because the organizations definitely lead our thinking as we mature in the grant giving space. So they are definitely key in our journey, but we do, basically out of practicality, we've limited most of our funding, most of our giving to countries like India, for example. I think since we started in 2009, close to half of our giving has gone to India. We've also made some inroads to East Africa, to Ethiopia, for example, or Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. So in terms of geography, we're mostly focused on India, to a lesser extent Bangladesh, and probably Indonesia would be the new country for us, and East Africa, which is Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and to very lesser extent Tanzania. It's all a capacity issue. We're about 30 FTEs at the foundation. We have quite a significant budget. We have to make the most of the people we have and the organizations that we learn from.
Right. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for sharing your insights. I think my sort of biggest two key takeaways from our conversations is around that it's not just about electrons, right? It's about enabling education, healthcare services, and so much more from providing that access to energy that you're focusing on. And the second, really around building these strategic partnerships with trusted organizations who have been working and who know their work very well. So building on that learning and not reinventing the wheel, but and it's something that you've been working on. So again, I think this has been great, Jeffrey, and we hope you and the rest of the team at IKEA continue making such great impact in the space.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having the conversation. I hope it's clear enough, but if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us, either to me or another colleague, and happy to assist in any way.